Today we're going to take a little journey back in time to a bygone era. Are you willing to come back with me? Hi, I'm Gabby and welcome back to another edition of the Fragrantician. We're here on this channel, it's all about fragrances. Today, it's a special edition. It's all about fragrances that our celebrities, our Hollywood film stars wore back in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s and 80s even. So, what fragrances are we talking about? Well, let's delve into some and let's go back in time. So the first fragrance we are going to talk about is probably, I think, the oldest fragrance in the bunch, and that is Bleue. Now, the Hollywood actress, well, she wasn't from Hollywood, she was originally from France, is Katherine Deneuve, and she reportedly doesn't really talk about fragrances that she wears, although she does say that she has worn Serge Lutens and a few other fragrances from Frédéric Malle. This has been a long favourite of Katherine Deneuve, and I'm just going to show you the bottle here. It is a beautiful powdery iris fragrance. Apologise for the top. The top has come off, so I have to decant this into a little atomizer, but I wanted to show you the bottle. It is a beautiful iris, and she reportedly has spoken about iris being one of her most favourite florals. So yes, Bleue. Now, Katherine Deneuve, what is she famous for? Well, she's famous for one of her very first film productions was Les Parapluies de Cherbourg, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, which was released in 1964, and it was a beautiful musical. I mean, she didn't sing in that film. However, she did reportedly wear this fragrance, and it's been a long fragrance standing with her. She was also in Belle du Jour, which was quite a risque film. And yes, she is star of the screen. She was in the 60s and 70s, 80s. Even today, she was in the most recent film, La Potiche, with Gérard Depardieu. If you've not seen that film, go and see that film if you can. I mean, it was released about 8 or 10 years ago, but it's a very good film where she exposes herself in a light of female empowerment, which is quite a good film. So please go and check that film out if you can. But Bleue, and Claude agrees with me, is one of the classics that she loves. The next one we are going to talk about is going back even further from Katherine Deneuve, going to Katherine Hepburn, and she loved flying. And Katherine Hepburn, she was a strong woman. She was in Bringing Up Baby with Cary Grant. She was in On Golden Pond with Henry Fonda, which I loved. And her favourite scent was Vol de Nuit by Guerlain. Again, another Guerlain classic. This came out in the early 30s. This is a reformulated version, and I love it. And so is the Bleue. All of these fragrances are not vintage. They are modern day formulas, which I love. So Vol de Nuit, this is green, it's galbanum, it's fresh, it's soapy, it's classic. I wore this the other day, look at that sprayer on there. It is a beautiful, beautiful fragrance. She reportedly wore this as her signature. And yes, Vol de Nuit, it is a classic clean, soapy fragrance, and it's unisex. I could imagine in the day, before it was reformulated probably, it was maybe a bit more sharper, a bit more greener, had a lot more maybe oak moss in it, but it is a unisex. It's strong in the sense that it is, I'm here, but it's not overpowering. It's not a sexy fragrance, but it's a fragrance that you could just wear every day. And I could have seen Katherine Hepburn, the siren, that strong, powerful woman that she was, wearing this scent. So the next fragrance we are going to talk about is yet another Guerlain fragrance, and it is Mitsouko, which is, I have it in a eau de parfum. It also comes in an eau de toilette as well. I've had this bottle several years. It is a reformulated bottle. I've had it about 8 or 9 years, this bottle. It wasn't a love at first sniff, and it's quite a complex fragrance, this fragrance. It came out in 1919, I do believe, but the actress that wore this fragrance was Ingrid Bergman. Again, a Swedish siren with Humphrey Bogart. And I'm going to talk about another fragrance that a siren wore alongside Humphrey Bogart. But Ingrid Bergman, she wore this film. She was in many, many films, again with Humphrey Bogart. But as a child, I always remember her in the film Murder on the Orient Express. I don't know why, I just envisage her then. She was in her 50s, maybe then, maybe even her 60s then. But it's lemony, it's sharp, it's green, it's a classic chypre fragrance which I've grown to love. Ingrid Bergman, I mean, striking, very striking, and I could see her wearing this scent. Now the next fragrance I'm going to talk about is Joy by Jean Patou. A delightful fragrance. This is, I do believe, an eau de toilette. Again, a reformulated version, and this actress who wore this fragrance, many actresses wore this fragrance, but the one particular one that comes to my mind that wore this fragrance was Vivian Lee herself. Yes, Gone with the Wind, fabulous, yes darling, but let's face it, I mean, she was born in the UK before she went to the US. She was born in the year my grandmother was born in 1913. And yes, Gone with the Wind made her fabulous. It made her famous. But I also remember her in the film A Streetcar Named Desire. Yes, she was that woman, Blanche, wearing this fragrance, I envisage, alongside Marlon Brando and Carl Malden. It is a rose and jasmine and musky scent. And basically that's what I pick up from it. Don't know what the older version smells like, and I don't really mind, I don't really care. I'm happy with this. It's those roses that are freshly cut. It's freshly cut roses, and it's the stems of the rose as well, combined with the jasmine, and the jasmine is slightly indolic, combined with the musk, which is slightly dirty. But I mean, I think in the older version it had civet, but it doesn't have it in this newer version, but I don't care. But yes, Vivian Lee, I mean, she was quite an extraordinary woman. She was married to Laurence Olivier. She suffered a lot with mental health, and my grandmother would say, oh, Vivien Leigh, she was a woman that really suffered with her nerves. That was like an old expression that older generation would say. Basically, she was a manic depressive. She had bipolar disorder, which would be diagnosed today. But yes, Joy. I mean, it came out in the early 30s in the Depression, when America and the world was going through the crash of 29, and it was a fragrance that wanted to be... It was a fragrance that Jean Patou wanted to bring joy to the world, and it brings joy to my life. And Vivien Lee, obviously, she loved it, so it's a beautiful fragrance. Moving on, we are moving on to the 1960s now. And in the 1960s, think of the film Cleopatra with Elizabeth Taylor. Think of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf with her and Richard Burton. Yes, Academy Award winner. And Elizabeth Taylor wore Bal à Versailles. Again, this is a newer formula. Now this is a civet bomb. Combined with florals, it has a whole host of different floral notes. Musk, sandalwood, civet. It is strong. I find it potent. However, the scent bubble of this fragrance, it is strong and it has backbone, and it is animalic, but I still find it quite wearable. That might sound quite a bit of a contradiction in terms. Whenever I've worn this, I've received compliments, and I don't need a lot, only a few sprays. However, I imagine Elizabeth Taylor in fact wearing this, and she actually gifted one of these bottles, not this bottle, but she gifted a bottle of Bal à Versailles to Michael Jackson, who then hoarded lots of bottles. So it's meant to depict those courtesans in Versailles in the 1600s dousing themselves in fragrance, because let's face it, in those days people stank. They did hardly washed. So, I mean, this fragrance wasn't about then. But of course, Elizabeth Taylor, think of her in her jewellery, think of her over the top, fabulous, let's face it. And I also remember her in the film These Old Broads. Fantastic film with Debbie Reynolds and Joan Collins as well in that film. And I loved that film. You've got to watch that film if you haven't. Elizabeth Taylor in that film, I mean, let's face it, it was not long before she died in that film, and she was so funny in that, you know. But anyway, she was also in an Agatha Christie film that I loved with with Rock Hudson and Geraldine Chaplin, the daughter of Charlie Chaplin, and Angela Lansbury, The Mirror Cracked. Yes, you know, she played alongside Kim Novak there. They were quite a side act in that film. But yes, I'm digressing. Bal à Versailles, Elizabeth Taylor. Beautiful, stunning, regal, classic, a sight to behold. We are fast forwarding to the 1980s. Who wore this fragrance? Jane Fonda wore, don't know if she still does, Obsession. Jane Fonda. Who doesn't love a little bit of Jane Fonda? Yes, more recently she played, well, it wasn't more recently, she played Monster-in-Law opposite J-Lo. But she was in other, I mean, let's face it, she was in that Barbarella in the 60s, that classic siren. She was in Clute. She was in the China Syndrome. She was in On Golden Pond with her father, Henry Fonda, and they had a very tumultuous relationship, which led her to an eating disorder. Hence, that's why she bought, you know, she bought out the Jane Fonda workout. She was quite messed up by her father. 80s, she wore Obsession. Obsession, big hair, big shoulder pads. Everything was big in the mid to late 80s. And boy, I mean, this fragrance is a powerhouse of a fragrance. Oh, it's so lovely. Do you know what? I actually think I'm going to take this scent away with me when we go up north to Newcastle. It's spicy, it's strong, it's in your face, it's yes, I'm here, loud and proud, and you don't need a lot. That's how strong it is. And this is a reformulated version. I would like to get my hands on an older bottle, I think, of this though, because I used to wear this a lot and I still love wearing it now. Obsession by Calvin Klein. Next fragrance is a little bit of a departure from Hollywood celebrities. However, Princess Diana did wear Hermes 24 Faubourg, which I thought I would include, and she also wore Diorissimo. She also wore Ubicon, and she also wore Blubell by Penhaligon's, which is a British brand, and Penhaligon's is kind of associated, I think, with the royal family. 24 Faubourg. This came out in the mid-90s, and I mean, Princess Diana died the 31st of August 97. I was living in Paris at the time when she died, but she loved this fragrance. It's not loved by many people. It's not really talked about a lot, I don't think, but I love it. I have the Eau de Parfum version. And she also loved Diorissimo, which is a more lily of the valley scent, which I really do love. And that just went in my eye, and I spray with gay abandon. Diorissimo. Our Princess Diana. This is a princess fragrance, I would say. Very much so. Penultimate one we are going to talk about is Lauren Bacall. And I know my scent mistress YouTuber Lulu from Lulu's World. She has 2 channels. Yes, I mean, she is extra. She doesn't have one, she has 2 channels. So go check her out. She refers to me as the Lauren Bacall of the world because of my voice, my husky, sexy voice. So Lauren Bacall wore L'ombre dans l'eau. And I have done a full review of this by Diptyque. She also wore Calandre by Paco, was it Calandre? Calandre by Paco Rabanne. But I have this version of Diptyque, L'ombre dans l'eau. This is a green, and it is a real green, like you've been out in the garden. And I do know the Perfume Nest Chris decluttered a bottle of this because she said it was too green for her, I think. Am I right? But there we go. But Lauren Bacall wore this. It is a very unisex fragrance. It is that rose bush with the thorns as well. You smell the thorns, you smell the roses, you smell all that greenery. You're digging up in the garden and you're wearing the gloves, which I don't do. And these manicured hands do not garden. No, they don't. But yes, L'ombre dans l'eau. I mean, look at that lovely picture there of the swan. It is that greenery, it's that outdoors. It really, really shines in spring and summer. But Lauren Bacall, I mean, let's face it, again, she was a strong woman. She was... One fact about Lauren Bacall as well is she was a registered Democrat. So, yeah. Was in the film Murder on the Orient Express as well in 1974 against Albert Finney. You can just imagine her. Oh, my second husband, Mr. Hubbard. Yes, you know, as she's. I mean, this didn't come out to the early 80s, so she was probably wearing Calandre by Paco Rabanne. But when this came out, I could imagine her in the film Misery, just spraying this, going to see her agent, James Caan, you know, telling him to stay away from Kathy Bates. You know, you could imagine, you know, she had that aura about her, you know, that literary agent, you know, loved her in that film, even though it was a very small part. But yes, L'ombre dans l'eau by Diptyque. Hey, Claude, yes. And finally, we come to a legendary queen. And one of my favourite films that she was in that's not really talked about. No, it's not Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, with Bette Davis. No, it was Queen Bee, which came out in 1955. And I imagine the lady, Joan Crawford herself, one of my icons, wearing nothing but Youth Due by Estee Lauder, which came out in 1953. This is an ambery civet, rose, jasmine, orange bomb. It is, and this is a reformulated version. I don't want the older version. I'm happy with this version. I've only recently bought this. in the last couple of months, and I really should wear it. Again, I'm going to take it away with me up north. I'm going to wear the fragrances that I really like to wear, and I'm with Richard, and he loves these types of scents. The ambery spices, the strong, the I am woman, come get me, you know. We can all dream, but anyway, I mean, this is the cutest, loveliest little bottle you've ever seen. It's a 67 ml. It only comes in this size, and a smaller bottle, reasonably priced, you know, in the UK here, well under £40 you can get it. So, yeah, Queen Bee. Now, she played that Southern belle in the film, and she was a strong, feisty, independent woman. She didn't really care, actually, who she hurt. You've got to watch that film. Very melodramatic, very dramatic. She was in her 40s then at the time, and she loved Youth Due. A lot of actresses loved Youth Due, but she really, really did love Youth Due. So Joan Crawford, I salute you. Go and watch Queen Bee. It's a fabulous film. And think of Youth Due. Those were my vintage scents that I feel that deserve an homage, whatever the word is. What is the word? It's to pay tribute to those stars of yesteryear. Some are still alive, some are still with us, others are not. A lot aren't, actually. What's your favourite fragrance that you love, that you think I should try, that a vintage starlet wore back in the day? Let me know. Till next time, you've been watching another edition of The Fragrantician. If you've enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it, let me know, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.